Stardew Valley on the surface is a calm, cozy and relaxing farming game. That is until you venture into the caverns filled with dangerous monsters of all shapes and sizes. And the Adventurers Guild in our local town want us not to just defeat the lot of them, but do it all in order of how they are listed. There are 12 different monster slayer goals to complete, and if we do them in order, we must start with 1000 slimes. Of course, I must fully complete each goal before I'm allowed to make progress towards the next one. I'm sure you all know how it works at this point. That means while slimes are our current target, defeating anything else is not allowed under any circumstances, unless it is truly impossible to progress in the challenge. Whilst on the surface, no pun intended of course, it seems fairly easy, but when you begin to actually attempt it, we will run into huge problems at the start, middle and end of this list. Some of these goals require access to the desert and even the volcano on Ginger Island, and one badly timed weapon swing could set us back hours worth of progress. On a separate note, from now on, I'll also be uploading the complete, uncut footage from this challenge and any future one I might attempt onto my second channel. So for anyone wanting to attempt the challenge, or any that I might do in the future, you'll be able to see exactly what I did on every single day. I'll also be including every single seed that I use, so you can try for yourself using the exact same farm. So, with the rules established and 1000 slimes standing between us and our first Monster Slayer goal completed in order, it was finally time to begin. The first order of business, like any other playthrough of Stardew Valley, is to plant our parsnips and chop enough trees to construct ourselves a handy chest to store all of our items whilst we explore the town in search of forageables, finding ourselves a dandelion at the bus stop. And talking about stops, our first one was at Pierre's to buy one of each spring seed that we'll be needing to complete the spring crops bundle inside the community centre later on. For the type of farm I started on, I went with the Riverlands farm in order to start with a free fish smoker for all of our smoking needs, and hopefully our ticket to making buckets of gold very early on. There wasn't really any other farm type worth considering, since our only goal in this challenge is to complete every single Monster Slayer goal in order, although I guess the Meadowlands farm would also work quite well here. We end a busy day 1 reaching level 1 in foraging, and wasted no time heading to the mail to read Willie's letter inviting us down to the beach to collect the bamboo pole to begin fishing. Like 99% of my playthroughs recently, the early game will be spent mostly on fishing to make as much gold as possible. Like any other new farm, there are plenty things we'll be needing gold for in the early game, so yes, however boring it might seem, this is very necessary. By the end of day 2, I had made it to level 3 fishing. Normally, I would try and fish enough to afford the fiberglass rod before Willie's closes at 5, but this time around, I couldn't catch enough fish for it. It really wasn't the worst issue in the world, since there wasn't much of a time limit on this challenge, although it has been nearly over a month since my last upload, so the faster we could finish, the better. We did manage to find some coal inside some treasure chests that I could use to smoke a fish or two before bed. It wouldn't give me much extra gold, but the more the merrier. Overnight we did make 1.9 thousand gold, which was way more than enough to buy the rod, and also some catfish bait Willie was selling, with the remainder of the gold on normal bait. Since the 3rd of spring will always be raining, fishing for catfish might seem like the best strategy, but as you can see, with our fishing levels so low, catching them was a struggle. In the end, we only got 2 catfish out of 8 pieces of bait. That led us to the mountain lake to fish our hearts away, even managing to get a diamond selling for 750 gold alone. Around the 2 PM mark, we had made it to level 4 fishing. Ideally, I would like to have made it to level 5 fishing today to gain the 25% sell bonus tomorrow, and we did that by 9 PM. As the night drew to a close, I had managed to get a great haul of fish, and since we were officially poor with 4 gold in our pocket, I didn't mind passing out when the clock struck 2 AM. Before we headed down to Willie's to sell our catches, I chose to smoke 2 of the catfish I got yesterday, because why not? Selling everything gave me enough gold to buy the first backpack upgrade, which is not just useful right now, but pretty much required when we start making our way through the mines tomorrow. For now though, it was back to fishing at the mountain lake. This time I brought my fish smoker with me to smoke any gold quality largemouth basses I may catch, and it only took me till 5 AM to reach level 6 fishing. If you're curious on how I had enough coal to smoke this many fish, well, it's down to treasure chests just like this one. Today, I chose to head back to the farm instead of passing out to allow me to ship off all of my fish. After sleeping of course, level 6 fishing was here, giving us the recipe for the bait maker, a machine we would love to get our hands on over the next few days. However, it was finally time to stop thinking about fishing and more about collecting our parsnips and eventually entering the mines for the first time in the challenge. Before then, I had to check out the travelling cart to make sure if it was selling anything to help us in our quest. Nothing today, but I'll try and remember to check it every single Friday and Sunday. I made sure to enter the town as the clock struck 8 AM this morning in order to watch the community centre cutscene with Lewis. But it was finally time to enter the mines, and upon our arrival, we met with Marlon, who handed us our very first weapon to take on his tricky quests. As mentioned before, our first monster that we have to slay in order is slimes, and a lot of them at that. On the first few floors, there isn't many monsters apart from slimes, so we can slay a few of them to begin the long haul to slay 1,000 of them. We made it to floor 5 without much trouble and managed to get a great find, a wooden club inside a barrel. Not just that, it also had the Slime Slayer enchant on it, which increases the damage done to slimes by 33%, which should make good work of the slimes on the lower levels. Our only close encounter came from these 2 bugs on floor 8, where I had to carefully mine the copper ore between them without accidentally hitting them, as they're a monster goal that comes much later. It wasn't long before we had made it to floor 10 and collected a fresh pair of leather boots. Another thing I was trying to do was being extremely careful slaying slimes when other monsters are around, as it is very easy to underestimate just how long the wooden club is and accidentally take out a bug too soon. Although, it was about time we ran into our first huge problem. These stupid, annoying, and outright disgusting flying bugs. Before, it was quite simple to dodge the monsters we couldn't slay yet, although these ones track you and follow you around until you either leave the level or they take you out. In line with our challenge rules of not being able to complete any other monster goals until the previous one had been done in order, we would have to let this bug continuously hit us over and over again until we could find ourselves a ladder to the next level. Bugs/insects are the 5th monster slayer goal in order, so later on into the game it wouldn't be too much of a problem since we would have access to lots of different foods to counteract this. But right now, we're on the 5th of spring with nothing but normal parsnips and a few bits of spring forage to our name. So this was bound to slow our progress down a lot. And honestly, this was just a glimpse of what's to come. Just look at the type of things our poor farmer self has to endure to get these done in order. And we cannot do anything about it. It's almost like we've covered ourselves in honey and ran into a bee's nest. Being completely out of food and no ladder in sight, I had no other choice on floor 17 to just leave the mines and come back much more prepared next time. So that was something. On to more positive things. Clint was at our door to hand us the furnace recipe, meaning we could now start smelting some copper bars for tool upgrades. And once I had 5, I sent off my axe for his first upgrade to copper before trying my luck inside the mines once more. We did run into a rock crab, which was yet another monster I couldn't slay just yet, and once again the cursed floor 17 had brought the same problems as before. I did manage to find our way off it and get to floor 20 and collect a new sword, which will go directly into the trash as our new wooden club was still holding up just fine. For the final task of the day, I thought I'd be smart to try and slay 10 green slimes to complete the initiation quest from Marlon in order to gain access to the Adventurers Guild so we can track our progress in the monster goals, and would be a good thing to constantly keep checking to see if we accidentally slain a monster too early and didn't notice at the time. And thankfully we hadn't. Although, it's not time to get too excited, as we had only slain 34 slimes out of 1,000. Why do we have to slay 1,000 slimes first? Like, come on, who came up with this idea? Oh wait, it was all of you at home. I hope you're enjoying the video. On our way home, I made sure to head inside the abandoned community centre to read the plaque, since we will need to complete the entire thing, since there is one monster on that list that requires access to Ginger Island. More on that one later. That allowed us to head to the Wizard's Tower the next morning to learn the language of the Junimos and start completing the bundles, starting with the Spring Foraging bundle. I made a quick stop at the new 1.7 Bachelor's shop today to buy 15 pieces of iron ore. If you were wondering why I did this, well, I had hopes to get my hands on a bait maker fairly soon, at least before we reach the frozen levels of the mines. Since the recipe takes 3 iron bars, this would be all the iron ore we needed to make one. I would have loved to make some more progress in the mines today, although a monster infested floor was in our way on floor 21, with monsters we cannot take down just yet. And no matter how many times I reset the floor, it would still have more than just slimes, meaning I was completely unable to make progress today. With nothing else to do, I waited for my iron bars to smelt and got an early night. The very next day, my new copper axe was ready to collect, and whilst I was here, I chose to smelt one more copper bar in order to send off my pickaxe for an upgrade too. Without a pickaxe, we'll be unable to continue our progress, so instead I thought I'd put my new axe to good use and clear out some trees in the Cindersap forest. That was until I had 300 pieces of wood to repair the bridge on the beach, And like any other playthrough, we will need access to the tide pool area for both sea urchins and coral to make the bait maker. The sooner we could get here, the faster we can make one. The main pro of a copper axe is that I can now chop hardwood stumps, collecting at least 10 pieces of it to complete the construction bundle inside the community centre. This is day 1 of checking the tide pools for sea urchins. We didn't get any today, but let's hope this isn't something we have a problem finding. Not any again. But despite our unluckiness with sea urchins, my brand new copper pickaxe was ready to collect at Clint's, which means we can re-enter the mines once more and begin working our way down to floor 120. And the spirits are in good voice today. Just look at how much copper is on this floor. Things were mostly clean sailing through the floors until I had a close call with this rock crab whilst I was clearing out some barrels. And situations like this are exactly how easy it can be to accidentally slay the wrong monster out of order. It wouldn't be a normal trip to the mines in this challenge without us being constantly harassed by flying bugs. Just so many bugs. I was so fed up with the bugs that I chose to waste 100 pieces of stone to make a staircase to easily make it to the next floor. Another day, no more sea urchins. I did make sure to return Robin her lost axe for a bit of extra cash this morning, followed by more trips to the mines, and for a change, the route to floor 40 wasn't challenging at all, which was a huge surprise. And just like that, we were on to the frozen levels, where we can get as much iron ore as we need, meaning buying those 15 pieces from Clint was a complete waste of time. I'm not sure why I chose to risk such a thing, but I really wanted to clear the barrels out, trying my very hardest to not accidentally slay this dust sprite. But to be honest, it wouldn't make much of a difference anyway, as I had completely ran out of food and had 0 energy, so I had no choice but to head back to the surface. Still no sea urchin. What was quite funny is that on the night of the 12th, we were visited by the crop fairy. Of course, having no prior knowledge to this visit, I only had 5 crops growing, but I thought I'd mention it nonetheless. Spring 13 is the arrival of the annual egg festival, which means strawberries. A lot of them. And also a nice straw hat too. After the festival, I made sure to plant them all in my pre-watered spots and call it in for the day. On the 14th, we were introduced to the frozen levels equivalent to the flying bugs, bats. Once again, according to our order, we are nowhere close to completing the slime monster slaying goal. That meant we are unable to do anything about them. And the same applies for dust sprites too, since they are also a monster slayer goal. And these frozen levels will have a lot of them too. Furthermore, we were introduced to the same issue we had with the bugs. If at any point the floor becomes infested, bats will continue to spawn, making them extremely dangerous, and sent me into a panic every time trying to find the ladder. Something that we'll be trying to do a lot throughout this challenge is to keep checking the Adventurers Guild Monster Slayer goals, to make sure after each successful mining trip I haven't accidentally slain a monster we cannot just yet. As with dust sprites, it's very easy to do without noticing. Still no sea urchin. But on a better note, our cauliflower had fully grown, allowing us to wrap up the spring crops bundle. Our progress to reach the bottom of the mines continued today, with a few issues of course. Being unable to kill anything but slimes at the moment made our lives 1,000 times harder, and meant we would be eating through our food much faster than normal. But before long, we had made it another 10 floors to floor 60 and claimed the crystal dagger. Despite it being a decent weapon, it would go straight into the trash as well, as our wooden club was still serving us pretty well, even at this level. And cut to 4 hours later, and we were on floor 70 without too much trouble. These next 10 floors contained skeleton enemies, which we couldn't take down either, making traversing the floors very difficult, especially when they all group up and throw bones at you. I would say our progress 16 days in was going better than expected for this challenge. And you could probably hear the foreshadowing in my voice, and for seemingly no reason at all. Whether I was too locked in about getting 20 floors done in a single day, on floor 79, I was chased by a bat, and I didn't just attack it once, or twice, in which I had plenty of time to realise what I was doing, and whether I was just running on muscle memory, I took down the bat. Not only is this not allowed in the challenge, and would force us to restart the entire day from the start, we would also be losing a quite magnificent day of mines progress, making it all the way to floor 80, over 20 floors in a single day, completely gone. So here we are back on day 16 again. Hopefully we have nothing like that again going forward, right? We did get back to floor 55 fairly easily again, and we did have to be careful when taking out this slime with 2 bats chasing me from behind. But around 4 PM I was back on floor 60, and then floor 70 by 10 PM. Instead of going any further, I chose to check if we were good to continue at the Adventurers Guild, and had slain 67 out of 1000 slimes. But what we were truly interested in is whether we had slain any other monsters out of order, and we hadn't. I did test my luck going back into the mines later, although an infestation of bats chased me out of the caves and all the way back home. It was safe to say they did not want me back in there. It was also at this point where I realised the terrible truth. We were going to need to complete the community centre in order to gain access to Ginger Island to finish the Monster Slayer goals in order. But there was one bundle in our way. The conveniently named Adventurers bundle requires 2 out of the 4 options. For us, the slime was fine, since we could slay and collect as much as needed, but how are we expected to get Bat Wings, Solar Essence or Void Essence without either finishing the slime goal first or getting lucky with a travelling car? And who knows how long it's going to take us to slay 1000 slimes, meaning travelling around the valley in fast minecarts might not be something we could do for a very long time. Waking up the next day, I saw a pesky crow eating one of our strawberry plants. That reminded me that I hadn't made a scarecrow to protect our crops, so I did that quickly. Back into the mines once more, getting to floor 75 didn't prove much trouble, since the skeletons don't really move that fast and the bones are very dodgeable. Despite being chased by the entire army of skeletons, and also a bat who wanted to get involved too, we were back to floor 80 and collected a fresh pair of Firewalker boots. Now we've made it to the lava levels, the monsters here are much stronger and deal a lot more damage per hit, which, as you can imagine, isn't a good thing. The main problem are the bats, which now do more damage, which is bad when we're constantly being chased by them the entire time. This is also the point where void sprites spawn, also dealing an incredible amount of damage as well. And that's not counting the Shadow Shaman that constantly heals nearby enemies. One of the main reasons we even needed to come down this far was for a fire quartz for the boiler room. Although without access to Bat Wings, Solar Essence or Void Essence, I'm not sure why I was in such a rush to do that room. Unfortunately, on floor 87 we ran into a familiar problem we had seen before, monster floors. Whilst these type of floors will be super important to complete the goals later, at the moment they contain multiple types of monsters like slimes, void spirits and more. That meant we are actually completely unable to make progress, so anytime we come across a monster floor this early in the challenge, it will literally make it impossible to progress on that day. So floor 85 was as far as we're going. After all of this mining, it was about time we had made it to level 5 mining, and we went with the miner perk to gain 1+ ore per vein. Over at the community centre, we had completed all of the bundles for the boiler room, leaving that pesky adventurers bundle, but it turns out I did have a plan to get one of those free items. On a more positive note, it only took us 18 days into spring, but we finally got ourselves a sea urchin. And according to the UI Info Suite mod, it's going to rain tomorrow, meaning this was perfectly timed to make a bait maker just in time for catfish. I did mention how I had a plan to get one of the 3 missing items for the adventurers bundle, and that plan took me to the beach to grab one more piece of seaweed I was missing. And if you want to know the super secret plan, well, it was fish ponds. It turns out one of the items that a sunfish fish pond can give you is a solar essence, meaning eventually we should be able to get it without speedrunning the 1000 slime goal and get ourselves the minecarts. Would this fish pond prove to be absolutely useless and a waste of time in getting this item? Maybe, but only time will tell, I guess. I made sure to catch 2 sunfish in the river, one for the community centre and one to place straight into the pond. Of course, after getting the sea urchin yesterday, I could make a bait maker and the very next day start catching catfish in the river. Combined with the fish smoker, this should make us a lot of gold. Around 4 PM, I stopped for a brief second to grab the eel for the night fishing bundle and went straight back to fishing. I built myself 2 extra cabins in order to grab the 2 spare fish smokers inside to speed up our smoking process. With this new equipment, I took it to the mountain lake this time to fish for largemouth bass, reaching level 8 fishing around 2 PM. In the evening, I sold all of my fish, making around 27,000 gold. Not too bad at all. That was of course enough for Demetrius to visit, asking us whether we'd like bats or mushrooms in the farm cave. For this particular challenge, neither is really that useful to us, but we did end up choosing bats because it would be better for fruits for the community centre. Spring 21 was also our first harvest of strawberries, giving us even more gold than we already have. The reason I haven't been mentioning the travelling cart in a while is because they've been absolutely terrible. That was until today, where I could buy some large milk for the animal bundle, before heading off to Clint to send my copper axe straight off to steel. Despite it raining once again, and my time would have been much better off spent fishing for catfish in the river, I chose to continue my quest to the bottom of the mines, when I totally didn't have to. Late into the afternoon, I made it to floor 90 and received the obsidian edge, a blade truly worthy of replacing our iconic wooden club. In the evening, I headed to the Adventurers Guild once more to check our progress, which as of Spring 21 is only 76 out of 1000 slimes. For a Monster Slayer focused video, I certainly haven't made that much progress in 20 whole minutes. But don't worry, things will begin to pick up very fast, I promise. It was once more raining today, and I felt like I couldn't starve off the temptation to go fishing in the river, and that was exactly what I did once more today. In the end, we made around 25,000 gold from just over 30 catfish. That combined with the gold I had from previous days was enough to fully finish the vault bundle for 42,500 gold. Although we didn't need to rush this vault bundle, we will eventually need access to the Skull Caverns for 3 Monster Slayer goals later on. Over at Clint's, I picked up my steel axe and sent off our pickaxe for its upgrade to steel. With the crystallarium we got as a reward from the vault bundle, I chose to place a diamond in it, not just for the passive gold, but also to eventually trade for triple shot espressos when we have to travel to the desert. And in all honesty, I have totally been putting it off for way too long. It was finally time to start making progress to get 1000 slimes slain. At first, it began on the lower levels, resetting the same floor over and over for any green slimes, but we weren't really getting that many. And at this rate, it would take me an entire season to finish it. A pretty good and reliable strategy was to try and explore as much of the mines as possible to try and locate either an infested floor or a slime infested floor. Preferably a slime infested floor, of course. And find one we did. After a few in-game hours of resetting floor 25, one of the slime produced a ladder which took us directly to a slime infested floor. And when some people would jump for joy at this discovery, I wasn't really doing that. Why, you may ask? Well, it was on floor 26 of the mines, meaning we would have to somehow travel through floor 25. Doesn't sound so bad, right? Well, it's not really, apart from the fact that I just sent my pickaxe off for an upgrade, meaning we would have to purely rely on slimes on floor 25, rolling the small chance at producing a ladder when they're slain. Annoyingly, that meant it was another 3 in-game hours before one did, followed by one more 3 hours later. Despite that, I checked our progress at the guild to see I had slain 142 out of 1000, which wasn't bad at all, but meant we were just over 10% of the way. Gosh, when you put it like that. Anyway, 2 days later, we could collect our new steel pickaxe and begin properly this time searching for more slime-infested floors. And try and get arguably the hardest Monster Slayer goal out of the way first. For some reason, I chose to ignore all of that strategy and decided that I needed to make it to floor 100 first for the star drop. I'm not sure why, and was completely a stupid idea, considering I would be constantly attacked by void sprites that I could not slay. I was even forced to waste 100 extra stone on making a staircase to escape the incoming horde of bats, and then yet another 100 stone later, making it to floor 100 and collected the first star drop of the video. I'm not sure what compelled me to want it so bad, but it's here now, so yeah. Our sunfish fish pond wanted some mixed seeds that I gave the next morning, followed by the construction of a coop, since I was pretty far behind animals at this point of the season. For the final cart of the season, it sold me a duck egg that I could donate to the community centre, and guess what I chose to do today? If you said finally farm slimes to work towards that goal, you'd be right. Kind of. Even after reaching floor 100, I chose to go even further down, and in all honesty, it was a good idea I did, as on my way down, on floor 106 was a slime infested floor. Funnily enough, however, I clearly didn't notice that there was a bat flying its way towards me, and I ended up swinging and taking it out in one hit. And that's just great. I suppose getting to reset the day today was kind of a blessing in disguise. A waste of time? Absolutely. But at least I knew where a slime-infested floor was going to be today. This time, getting through floor 105 wasn't an issue, since I had a pickaxe this time, giving me a lot of time today to slay as many slimes as possible. Around the 9:30 PM mark, I headed to the guild to check our progress, and I was convinced we had to be on around 500 out of 1000 by now. 249. It wasn't that bad, but it didn't really give me motivation after spending half a day killing slimes. I would love to continue inside the mines today, but with the arrival of summer, I had dead crops to clear and a fresh copper hoe to collect, which I'll be using to plant a bunch of new summer crops. Summer 2, I was able to wrap up the summer foraging bundle, and on the 3rd, I found myself another slime-infested floor. It wasn't on the most convenient layout, but who am I to complain? This time, I would have the entire day to farm this, and with no floor to clear to get here, would mean a lot more time can be spent slaying. I would have to be careful, as there can be occasional bats that spawn here, but it was time to grind. In the evening, I headed to the Adventurers Guild to see we were around halfway there. Oh, come on! Stay calm, Tom. You can do this. To nobody's surprise, I had enough experience to reach level 5 combat, and I chose the fighter perk that made all of my attacks deal 10% more damage. Before we returned for another fun day of slime slaying, I headed to Marnie's to buy some chickens for our new coop. We will need both a brown and white large egg for the animal bundle. It was around midday before I was able to locate one of the slime floors for the day, and this time it was on floor 21, another great floor for resetting. Because we were on the earlier floors of the mines, these slimes will go down in one hit, making it even faster for slime farming. Progress check, we were up to 874 slimes by the 5th of summer, marking nearly a whole week before we started slime farming. And by the 6th, we were so close to finishing it. Even better, one of the slimes dropped a Holy Blade, which contained the Crusader enchant, which will be very useful later on. But finally, around 10 PM on the 6th of summer, we saw the quite beautiful message that we had completed a Monster Slayer goal. The only thing that could stop us now was if I accidentally slain another monster out of order and didn't notice. But checking the board, we hadn't. And that meant we could officially continue with this challenge, and we had completed our very first Monster Slayer goal in order. But let's be real here. With the inclusion of slime-infested floors, this one wasn't that bad in all, and we have some extremely tricky ones coming up. And let's not even mention the serpent one, but that's a problem for future BitGamerTom to worry about. For now, let's focus on what comes next. The next monster in order is Void Sprites, and just to check that point, I took one out and collected some Void Essence that we could donate to complete the minecarts, so the fish pond did turn out to be a complete waste of gold. Despite such a bad travelling cart, it did sell us a red cabbage seed today, which is great for the dye bundle. And I guess it's a good point to start slaying some void sprites. And even though I was about to be swarmed by bats, I was able to reach floor 110 in the mines. But the swarm of bats wasn't going to let me off so easy, and gave me even more trouble on floor 112. And in the end we made it to floor 115, and you'll be happy to know this is as far as we're going right now. And you would probably think, why not go 5 more floors and reach the bottom? Well, once you make it to the bottom of the mines, a lot of things change actually. In our case, most monsters will become stronger, increasing defense by 50%, the chance of missing a hit will be doubled, HP will be increased by a random value between 0 and 100%, and since most of these goals are in the normal mines, reaching the bottom will just make things a lot harder for us. Before we begun the grind to slay 150 Void Sprite, I decided to take some time to catch all of the fish exclusive to the summer season for the community centre, like the tilapia, tuna, sturgeon, to complete the lake fishing bundle and more. Then when it was raining, I could get myself the red snapper, wood skip, to the desert to get the sandfish, and also the ghost fish in the mines to complete the ocean fish bundle, and nearly complete the specialty fish bundle too, which only took 1 puffer fish to catch to wrap up. The travelling cart must have heard our criticism, as it gave us another red cabbage, and also a solar essence, so if I still needed one for the adventurers bundle, this would be the time to get it. I was to Robin's to build myself a barn. Remember, we would both need a truffle and a large goat milk for the community centre later down the line. With enough delaying out of the way, it was time to start slaying some void sprites. It would be pretty slow without a monster floor, but at least it's only 150 of them and not 1000 of them. At the end of the day, I had 64 out of 150 slain, which honestly isn't that bad. The very next morning, we had a large harvest of melons. We would need 1 for the summer crops bundle and 5 gold star quality ones for the quality crops bundle, and it's right back to the mines. Whilst I was down here, I was trying to be very careful to not slay these grey dudes, as I was unsure if they even counted towards any monster goals. I mean, what even are their name anyway? Metalhead. Sure, I guess. But I had no choice in accidentally slaying one. Whilst I waited to check if they had ruined our progress, I decided to continue slaying void sprites anyway. And it turned out my instinct was right. They don't count towards any type of goal, meaning we are completely safe to take them out if they're in our way, and we can let out a small sigh of relief. The end of the second day of grinding, we were up to 117 void sprites out of 150. One more day might do it, I'm not gonna lie. Before we returned, I wrapped up the summer crops bundle and did come across yet another slime infested floor, which unfortunately, as the name says, only spawns slimes, so we cannot use it for void sprites. But the game did bless us with a proper monster floor on floor 93, which should be enough to finish this monster slayer goal. The main issue is it was on floor 93, meaning we would have to go through floors 91 and 92 to get here, which over the course of the entire day does eat into a lot of time. But just before 2 PM, I got the lovely message once more of a completing of another monster slayer goal. Same with the previous one, the only thing that could stop us from moving on now was checking that we hadn't accidentally slain another monster out of order. I was being careful and thankfully I didn't. Next up was bats, and 200 of them was a lot. But honestly, I'm finally glad we can take them out after getting swarmed by them all the way through our journey to floors 115. The reward for slaying 150 void sprites was the Savage Ring, which gives you a short speed boost whenever you slay a monster, and this is actually really good ring to get. Before we dove back into the fight, I upgraded our barn to a big barn and bought some cows at Marnie's. Once I had finished building, I bought some goats as well, since I was still missing a large goat's milk for the animal bundle. And to no one's surprise, the next thing I did was upgrade the barn once more in order to house some pigs for the truffle. My first idea to try and slay 200 bats was to head to the frozen levels, and sure, there were a few bats there, but without finding a monster floor, our progress would be very slow, and once more we had the problems of trying to avoid dust sprites. Seeing 6 out of 200 really gave me flashbacks at just how long it took us to get 1000 slimes, but I had an idea that would change that forever. This mysterious plan that I'm sure no one can guess would unfortunately have to wait until next season. So for now it was time to chop some trees, grab a crayfish from the travelling cart in order to complete the crab pot bundle, and also grab a rare seed for the star drop in the secret woods. It wouldn't be the end of summer without the dance of the moonlight jellies, and things have been pretty hectic so far, so it's a good point where we can just sit and enjoy. With the arrival of fall, we're still needing a few more crops for the community centre, so it's straight to plant those on fall 1. We can also catch the tiger trout today as one of the final fish we need to complete the fish tank bundle, and I decided to spend the rest of the day fishing on the farm for a bit more gold to afford a few more coop upgrades, and it was finally time to unmask my super secret master plan that I'm sure absolutely no one could have seen coming. Okay, enough of that. We all know what we want to get. On the 2nd of fall, Robin will build the special orders board, and on there is one quest that will make our time completing these goals 1000 times easier. And that was Prismatic Jelly from Rasmodius himself. Completing this special order will give us the crafting recipe for Monster Musk that increases the spawn rates of monsters by a lot, which should be able to help us with our bat problem since we were having a hard time getting a lot of them. The only issue was, it isn't guaranteed to spawn on the board, and this week we had Pierre's prime produce and aquatic overpopulation from Demetrius. I did choose to complete the aquatic population in order to remove it from the potential pool of special orders, which was made very easy with the bait maker, getting it wrapped up before the afternoon even arrived. Since it was raining today, meant I could catch the final fish I needed for the fish tank bundle, the walleye, completing yet another room with only 3 more to go. Over at Robin's I had enough to commission a big coop upgrade. Remember, we still need a duck for its duck feather for the dye bundle. By the 7th, the cart had sold me a pomegranate and a rabbit's foot on the very same day, conveniently the 2 items I needed for the enchanter's bundle, and would save me having to get rabbits myself. And before we knew it, the new week was here, and checking the special orders board, we were once more disappointed. Cave patrol from Clint will literally be impossible for us right now, because it requires slaying 50 skeletons, and obviously we can't. So I chose Robin's project in order to remove it from the pool. On the 11th, I had collected a truffle and a large goat's milk from my animals, which was enough to wrap up the chef's bundle and also the animal bundle. And by the halfway stage of the fall season, we had a full field of pumpkins to collect, drop off some hardwood at Robin's, and complete the full crops bundle. But yet again, we didn't get the Prismatic Jelly quest. At the Stardew Valley Fair, I made a decent Grange display in order to win 2nd place, and a few spins later, we could buy yet another star drop. Whilst we had spent so much time not working on the goals, I thought it would be a good idea to send my pickaxe off for its upgrade to gold, since we'll be needing it when we travel to the Skull Caverns and also the volcano at some point in this video. As the 19th arrived, I could complete the final bundle inside the pantry and complete the greenhouse, which was a pretty big moment, but wouldn't really help us in completing every monster goal in order. The small way it would help was fruit trees. I still needed 3 apples for the fodder bundle, and the farm cave was just not giving me them. The new week and still no prismatic jelly quest. And wouldn't you believe it, we were waiting for the entire season and we still didn't get it. So here we are in winter, which starts with us chasing Krobus down in order to get our hands on the magnifying glass. But all the waiting would eventually pay off, as we finally had the prismatic jelly quest to complete. My go-to strategy with the prismatic jelly quest is to reset the lava levels with the elevator over and over again until we find it. This can sometimes take a few days in game to get, but not this time. Around 12 PM I managed to find it, took it down and rushed the jelly down to the wizard to complete the quest. That would then mean the next morning in the mail, the wizard would send us the crafting recipe for Monster Musk, and it was about time we made a bunch of it and started completing these goals. The crafting recipe for Monster Musk requires both slime and bat wings. Slime wasn't really a big problem as we had just slain 1,000 of them. The bat wings were the harder part to get, but we already had just enough to craft one. And we would have to slay 200 bats anyway, so we should get a lot more throughout the days. But let's do this. Out of all of the goals, this was the one where I had to be the most careful, as on the frozen levels, dust sprites were everywhere. And with the Monster Musk equipped, they were spawning even more than they already do. So we had to be super careful to not accidentally take them out. We did have a few close calls with dust sprites, but the Monster Musk was making this much easier. Combined with the Savage Ring too, giving us a short but effective speed bonus every time we take a bat down. The main strategy was trying to lure the bats away from any monster we couldn't take out just yet, and also trying not to use the slam as its radius is so big. After taking out a bat on floor 45, I managed to come across a monster floor, which was good and bad at the same time. It's obviously good because more monsters equals more bats, but that also meant more dust sprites. And what did I just say about using the slam by accident? Oh come on! For anyone that doesn't think monster floors are that big of an issue, just look at this. I am trying my absolute best to lure the bats away from the dust sprites, but because there are just so many, it's almost impossible to get any window to use my weapon. In the end, I managed to get all of them caught on the sides, with the bats able to traverse through the walls to get to me. And only around 3 PM, I was up to 58 out of 200 bats slain, proving the Monster Musk was making these a treat to do. And by the end of the day, I was up to exactly 100 out of 200 bats slain. Halfway there. In total, I had enough bat wings to make 3 more Monster Musk, as even once we finished the bat goal, we would still want to be using Monster Musk for the entire rest of the challenge. More of the same on the 3rd of winter, ending the day with 181 slain, so it wasn't that bad at all. One more day should do it. And by 10 PM, I got the message of a new monster goal was completed, and we waited patiently outside the Adventurers Guild to find out whether we could move on or not. Which we hadn't. There was no time to celebrate, however, we had monster goals to complete, and we were on a roll. The next one up was probably the easiest one we'll get, skeletons requiring 50 of them to be slain, and considering they spawn very frequently, combined with the Monster Musk I still had left over, let's go slay the skeletons. I mean, they are already dead, so... Wait, who cares? What am I talking about? Let's just get on with it. It was so easy, in fact, it only took us to 9 PM where I'd managed to slay 50 of them, and checking our progress, I was right. Wow, that was easy. Next up was bugs, which was another easy one, especially if you're resetting around the mid-20s mark, where large groups of grubs can spawn. With my Monster Musk still having plenty of time, I thought I might as well use up the remainder of the day farming the 80 insects I needed. During this time, I found a monster floor on floor 18, which had just an insane amount of bugs to slay, and made for a very satisfying monster slaying session. I was still playing this super smart, however, as rock crabs can spawn here, and also duggies in the ground, so I made sure to always swing my weapon away from those areas. But call me crazy, is that 3 monster slayer goals done in a single day? Absolutely. One of the last rooms in the community centre was the crafts room, which we wrapped up pretty easily, leaving only some apples for the fodder bundle and the duck feather for the dye bundle. Next up for the Monster Slayer goals was 30 duggies, which aren't that hard to find. They will sometimes burrow their head above the surface on dirt patches just like this one. So the best strategy is to reset floor 15 in the mines, and walk over it as much as possible to cause them to come to the surface. Like many other times, rock crabs can also get in the way here, so even though we were riding a bit of a wave at the moment, we would still have to have our wits about us. But around 5 PM, they were complete. Back at the Adventurers Guild, things were starting to look pretty good. That was until I saw what monster goal came next. Dust sprites. 500 of them. And was honestly one of the reasons I wanted to get my hands on some monster musk before tackling this one. I mean, it won't be that difficult, especially compared to the 1000 slimes, as they do spawn in huge clusters which can be taken out quite easily by slamming. The best part was, I wouldn't have to be careful of any other monsters now on the frozen levels, since we could now slay them all. And for our first day, we had completed 124 out of 500, and it was time to go again. Late into the second day of dust sprite hunting, one of them dropped a combat quarterly book, which we can trade at the bookseller for a monster musk when he arrives. Day 2 was pretty spectacular, with us getting 452 out of 500 of them. Only one more day until we were completely done with such a big goal, which honestly surprised me, but I didn't really care that much. The faster it was done, the better. And around 10 AM the next day, we were done. The next goal up was 60 rock crabs, which would take us some time since they are quite rare to spawn. The best strategy I thought to slay 60 rock crabs was to swing our weapon on the rocks that match the rock crab's appearance, and if it connects and does 0 damage, then it's a rock crab. I'm sure there's a better way to tell, but come on, can you honestly tell me which one's meant to be a rock crab and which one's meant to be a rock? This would mean progress on this one would be pretty slow, but with the trusty monster musk in hand, we should be able to get it done in only a few days. Similar to what happened with the dust sprites, the rock crab is actually the final normal monster goal, which meant we didn't have to worry about slaying anything out of order this time, or let monsters hit us over and over again. But for now, the process remained the same: swing at rocks and work at this goal, even passing out at 2 AM the very same night. It was strange it took this long, but it was about time I had made it to level 10 combat, and I did choose Brute to deal 15% more damage in total. After another whole day in the mines, we still hadn't slain 60 of them. I was convinced we were close, and I wanted to check how far away I truly was, only to find the door of the Adventurers Guild was locked due to the Festival of Ice happening today. We did find another combat quarterly book later, but when 2 PM arrived, I could head to the guild as soon as it opened to find out we only needed 14 more to go. Okay, enough of this now, let's do it. And there we have it, 60 rock crabs have been defeated, and once more is the final monster slayer goal that actually takes place in the normal mines. The next one up is mummies from the skull caverns and requires we slay 100 of them. And just on a small note, we have been making a lot of progress very quickly, but if you think things were getting easier for us, you were right. These final 4 goals gave me more trouble than the entire rest of the previous ones. The reward for completing the crab monster slayer goal was the crab shell ring, which provides us with a +5 defense, which is a great ring for us to have, considering the monsters we're about to encounter in the skull caverns are very strong. Annoyingly, we only had enough bat wings to make 2 more monster musk, which realistically isn't going to be enough to finish all of these remaining goals. It's at this point where the holy blade I found all of that time ago becomes useful. Of course, you'll know our next goal is to slay 100 mummies, and normally when you hit a mummy, they don't die, but almost stun and then get back up. Only with explosives can you defeat them. That is, of course, unless you have a weapon with the Crusader enchant, which allows you to slay them directly. So yeah, that is definitely coming with us. If only I knew the pain that was to come. Before we entered the skull cavern, I could trade any diamonds and rubies I had for spicy eels and triple shot espressos, and also trade off a prismatic shard I had found for the galaxy sword. But once again, let's do the... It's locked. I had completely forgotten to get to floor 120 and get the skull key. Okay, that was embarrassing, but now we have it. Before we entered, I chose to apply some monster musk, and little did I know this would be a huge mistake. For the first floor, I got exactly what I wanted, a large floor filled with mummies to slay, and also a lot of ghosts too. But there was one monster in here that's main job was to make these last monster slayer goals impossible for us, and that monster goes by the name of the serpents. Because serpents are the second to last monster goal, we would be completely unable to do anything about them, and if you've been to the Skull Cavern yourself, you'll know just how annoying and how hard they hit. And with Monster Musk, makes them spawn so much more frequently too, so they could just hit us over and over and over again, causing me to go through piles upon piles of food I'd brought in only one day. And don't even get me started on what happens if the floor turns infested. What am I even supposed to do about this? All I'm trying to do is slay this mummy. It was so difficult in fact to do anything in here, and I was running so low on food, I decided to completely give up and leave the caverns. And this is the face of someone who knows just how painful these next few goals are going to be. Let's check out our progress for today. Oh, come on Tom, you can't quit now. The viewers have already been waiting a month for a new video. After that unsuccessful day, we had completely run out of Monster Musk to use too. But luckily I could trade in a single Combat Quarterly book for one at the bookseller, and also buy another one he had to trade back in. Another upgrade I thought I could use was the backpack upgrade. That would allow me to carry even more food into the Skull Caverns, and I decided to return for a new day of attempts. This time I chose to not even use the Monster Musk. Mummies already spawned quite frequently on their respective floors, and at the bare minimum, it would at least half the amount of serpents looking to ruin our day. And honestly, this worked a charm. Sure, there were always going to be the occasional serpent we had to work around, but at least it wasn't the flock we had in previous days. So, over the next few days, that was all we did. And to say this was fairly easy would be an understatement, and just like that, it was done. The next one up was annoyingly not serpents, but Pepper Rexes. Although only 50 of them shouldn't be too bad. I did really want to try using the Monster Musk again, because on prehistoric floors, Pepper Rexes are one of the only monsters that can spawn, and despite it bringing me lots of trouble with the serpents, we ran into our first prehistoric floor on floor 63, and we didn't find one after that, ending the day with 10 out of 50 slain. It only took us 4 seasons, but our duck had finally produced its duck feather, allowing me to complete the dye bundle. We had another prehistoric floor on floor 10, and found a few on some random floors to take us to around halfway there. And finally, a bunch more throughout the same day was enough to finish it. It was never going to take us that long, since we only needed 50 of them. And with a load of Monster Musk, this was pretty easy. And despite it being a great achievement, next up was 250, yep, 250 serpents. And on one hand, I'm glad that I can finally attack them now. On the other hand, 250 is a lot, and unless the floor becomes infested, you might not even get more than 1 serpent per floor. Okay, no more complaining. We're on the home stretch now, people, I promise. And to be honest, I've never been happier to see an infested floor in the Skull Caverns, and this was how our progress looked after day 1. Day 2. Before we began day 4 of serpent slaying, we had finally gotten the 3 apples I needed to complete the fodder bundle, but more importantly, complete the community centre as a whole. And the reason I've been mentioning this throughout is we need to get to Ginger Island for the final monster slayer goal, so completing it the right way is the only way. Day 4 progress. And strolling into town on day 5 of serpent slaying, I could see the entire town happy and celebrating the restoration of the community centre, and also watch Pierre send Morris into the rafters. But after 6 whole days of Skull Cavern diving, we got the beautiful message that the monster slayer goal was complete. And if you'd really like to, the entire full, unedited playthrough of course is going up on my second channel if you'd like to see just how long it truly took. Heading to the Adventurers Guild, and it was true. We had completed the Monster Slayer goal, leaving only one left in order: Magma Sprites, 150 of them. Of course, they can only spawn in the volcano, which is why we needed the community centre complete and also access to Willy's boat. As a reward for slaying that many serpents, we can get the Napalm Ring, which is super good, and causes a small explosion after defeating an enemy, a great one for us to bring with us to the volcano. We were still a few bits of hardwood away from the boat repair, so a few trips to the secret woods would be enough. Whilst we enjoy a short boat ride over to the island, I'll run through what our plans are here. I want to get just enough golden walnuts to rebuild the island farmhouse. That is so when we're grinding inside the volcano, we don't have to constantly take the boat back to the island every single day, and instead just have a short walk up to the volcano. It was late into the day, but I had gotten enough to repair it, and chose to head into the volcano and begin slaying these magma sprites. Since it was the final monster goal in order, there wasn't anything we could slay out of order, meaning it would just take a few long days of grinding to get to that wonderful end. We were so distracted by slaying magma sprites on each level that I didn't have enough time to reach the forge today. It wasn't a big issue, so after passing out, we are brought right back to the island farmhouse, which is exactly why I wanted to repair it. I would really like to say that it was an interesting time, but it really wasn't. It was just the same thing over and over again. We did manage to reach the forge today, however, where I chose to combine both of our 4 rings to maximise the buffs each one can give us, alongside enchanting my sword too. It took us another whole 3 days to feel I was close. It was now the 3rd of spring year 2, and we hadn't left the island since. At the beginning of spring 3, I felt I must have been so close to finishing it by now, but heading back into town to check the Adventurers Guild would just be a waste of time. And I'm glad I didn't, because funnily enough, my instinct was right. And the very next day on spring 4 of year 2, I slayed a single magma sprite, which was enough to complete the monster goal. And after that, there was nothing much to do apart from rush over to the Adventurers Guild and patiently wait outside to see the results in person. And there they were. Every single monster slayer goal completed in order, and I'm never doing that again. Of course, on the surface, this seemed like a very easy challenge, but as we got into it, it proved a lot harder than I expected. Of course, if you enjoyed, I ask if you could like and subscribe to the channel. It means the world to me and allows me to continue making videos just like this one. If you'd like, you can also join our Discord server linked in the description too, where you can send me art just like this one. If you're interested in seeing the entire playthrough, it will be uploaded to my second channel linked in the description too, along with the seed used. For each challenge going forward, I'll be doing this, so it's very much worth subscribing to. But until next time, later.